Yeah.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McEllis. Before we get started with our beautiful guest today, I'd just like to ask for each and every one of you to hit like, subscribe, share, comment, leave us a question because who knows, you could have it answered on the next episode. And it helps the algorithms so that these videos wind up on somebody else's feed at the perfect time. But it can't do that unless you help promote it and scoot it along. So, like, subscribe, share, comment, or question. So, everything's pretty cool here in DC. And I'm about to introduce Dr. Nancy. Dr. Nancy's got a lot to say. She's a wealth of knowledge with plant medicine. She's a very talented author, and we had the pleasure of meeting last month and just hit it off like we knew each other forever. So I thought, oh my gosh, you've got to come on and share yourself with the Keep It Spiritually Simple group. It's small right now, but it's growing because subscribers are hitting like and getting us around the globe. So, Dr. Nancy, how the heck are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show, Sandy.
Oh, my goodness, you're most welcome. So, let's talk a little bit about you. How the heck did you become a Dr. Nancy, and what are you a doctor of? And, how did you get to these books and your life in this moment? And just give the listeners just a little insight into you. I know a lot of it will be on your website, which we will have links in the description. I know a lot of the things that you've written about are all in your books. People can get those, but just for the sake of the listeners who might not be on our YouTube channel where they can see you and I bobbing back and forth and they're just listening. So tell them a little bit about you.
Well, I have a doctorate in mystical research, and I also have a bachelor's and master's degree in metaphysical science. And before that, I was worked in corporate world for a number of years. So I have a bachelor's in business administration and an MBA degree, master's in business administration. So it's I could tell I love education and school and learning and expanding and growing. And I've been on this path for 40 years. When I started, actually, it was on a journey to become an Episcopal priest. I went through Episcopal
Ooh.
seminary, almost became an Episcopal priest. And so for 20 years, I was focused more on learning the Western philosophies. And then after that, I switched over and went Eastern. And so for the last 20 years, I've been focusing on all the Eastern philosophies and teachings and the ancient spiritual wisdoms, which caused me to get to a level where I wanted to go even deeper. And I heard the call, as they say in the psychedelic community, from Mother Ayahuasca. She did call me. It took about a year for me to get from the time she started calling me into ceremony. And I did 6 ayahuasca ceremonies, and it totally changed my life. And I was able to hear Mother Ayahuasca, which is a consciousness. She bonds with your DNA, she's with you until you take your last breath. And she was talking to me and asking me to do certain things. And so I just kept showing up saying yes. And one of those many things that she asked me to do was to go back to school and get my metaphysical science degrees and then continue on to get the PhD in mystical research. And then after that, she asked me to start writing these books. And actually, Spirit gave me 6 titles, told me to write about these 6 titles, and then I've written and published 4 out of the 6. I do have all 6 titles on my website, and so the last 2 are in process. I'm working on the 5th one now, and so that's why I ended up getting into this writing and teaching and explaining and that type of thing. So
Holy wowza.
yeah.
I just learned a lot about you in that little 3-minute segment of who is Dr. Nancy. I'm a little intimidated right now by all those degrees on. I'm like, whoa, she knows her shit for sure. And she does. She honestly does. If you ever want to know anything about just about anything, especially plant medicine, this woman is the one to talk to. So, all right, well, let's talk about you're saying that Mother Ayahuasca, once you have experienced her through her calling, that she is then in your DNA, in your, you're saturated with her spiritual energy, and then she begins to work with you in a different way than prior to a ceremony. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, they're saying about 50% of the people, once they go into ceremony, it is an initiation. And she ends up where about 50% of the people, after they come out of ceremony, can hear her very clearly. And the other 50% have to cultivate this inner dialogue. So she is there. And I've been told that as soon as you put your deposit down to go into sacred ceremony and start this process, which a lot of people start this process months before the sacred ceremony, through their diet, through a number of different things, which I do go into in my book, and I'll go into more into my video series I'm going to start doing on my YouTube channel. Because I think that there's a lot of people that are still interested in doing sacred medicine with different master plant teachers. I think that they have found, I know for me personally, I did meditation for 20 years and I could not get beyond the ego death. And it was so easy and natural once I went under the ayahuasca. But there's other master plant teachers, which I go into all of them into the book that I'm going to be doing the series on, which is Master Plant Teachers, is the title of it. But there are people who've also they've done the ceremony, they've had the mystical experiences. Okay, now what? Now it's integration. It's integrating all the aspects of what you experienced in your sacred ceremonies into your life. And so they'll say 2% on the mat, 98% integration. So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. So,
Oh my goodness.
so with the 50% that hear, so you're hearing a voice that you know is Mother Ayahuasca, but it's different than your own voice in your head.
Yes, and that's part of, I would say, the journey, because it's differentiating the difference between your ego, which majority of the time we're used to hearing our ego. And now you have this other voice that's in your head, and this is a different frequency. This is a different vibrational frequency, completely different. You feel the difference between, hey, this is not my ego. This is a consciousness. This is a power, and she makes herself very real to you. She lets you know who she is, and she goes through your entire cosmology. She's going to go through your whole life. She's going to say, okay, this situation needs to change. This person needs to go. This person can stay. This you need to work on. This person you need to apologize to. I mean, she literally is, that's why they call it, as she's a feminine energy. So she's like a mother. That's why they'll call her Mother Ayahuasca, is because she loves you, but it's a motherly tough love sometimes too. And she wants the best for you. And she feels that now she's responsible to you, and she's going to do everything she can to help you on your spiritual journey in your physical incarnation. And so it's a very interesting experience. I think the first time, I know that when I went into my first ceremony, it was just getting used to the medicine and her. And it was a very interesting feeling. I'd never had this feeling before, but as the medicine started to go into my bloodstream, I could feel this consciousness going through my entire cosmology. It's like there was nothing hidden. She was going through and getting to know me, my entire universe, completely. And part of it was, who do you belong to? What soul group do you belong to? Who's your family of light? Because she's the facilitator. She doesn't create the mystical experiences for you, she just connects you across the veil to therefore meet the people you need to meet, have the mystical experiences you need to have, the messages that need to come to you, the imagery, the scenes, the everything that at that time you need to hear. So
Well, a couple things are rolling through my mind there when you said she can, come in and then tell you who you need to, get out of your life and what changes you make. And I'm thinking, boy, Mother Ayahuasca must be a cousin of mine because I could be really good about getting in people's heads and telling them what to do, who to get rid of, and how to change your life like real quick, you know. And then the other part of that is when you were getting, into it further, I was feeling this overwhelming exhale from what I felt prior, because prior I was feeling more like in my upper registers, of like being here in my fight or flight 10 and 2, having a chat with you, right? And all of a sudden it was like I had this very deep inhale and exhale from my heart. And it was almost like what you were saying, I was breathing in and connecting with her, just through what you were sharing. And I don't know if any of the viewers will feel that way, but if they are, I hope they leave a comment about it. Um, because we all become part of that that sinking of energy when we start to talk about,
Yeah.
um, the energies of, say, the consciousness of a plant.
Yes.
We tap into that. You know, it's almost like when we hear a story, we'll tune into a story, we become part of that story, and we're walking with it, and we want the ending to be beautiful and all those
Yeah.
things. So that was really powerful. Thank you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so that opened you up to go back and get more education and to
Yes.
start doing your writing. So you've got your 6 titles, 4 of which are published. Now you've got 2 more that you're working on. You're doing your series on YouTube. You're going to be doing a series here with us on multiple different things on Keep It Spiritually Simple. Why? Because, well, we're just connected like that. Um, so what do we want to talk about next? Do we want to talk about, one of your books and how that kind of came up and about, or you want to talk more about Mother Ayahuasca? What do you feel is coming through for you? We have no
Well,
agenda
I
here.
know we talked about 4 poems that you selected out of the this book, Divine Essence of Love. Yes, exactly. Spiritual poetry. And and like every book, there's always a backstory. And I think people like to hear the backstory on the book. And it's actually a very interesting one because one of the things that Mother Ayahuasca was saying to me is that okay, I completed the third book, and then she comes along and says, okay, well now this fourth book, you can't write this fourth book in the United States. You have to go to the Azores to write this book. And I said, huh? The Azores? Where's the Azores? I'd heard of them, but I didn't even know what they were. And so I
Yeah.
had to look it up. And it's a collection of Portuguese islands out in the middle of the Atlantic. Well, here's the interesting part about the Azores. It's the part of Atlantis that didn't sink. So she says, I want you to move over there, and this book, this fourth book, this poetry book has to be written in the Azores. Well, first of all, it took me a year and a half just to get a visa to go over there to live there long term. And I figured I'd be there about 2 years at least, maybe 3 or 4. I wasn't sure. And so so I ended up moving over there, immigrating over there. I was an American expat over there for the entire year of 2024. I moved over there in December of 23, and then just came back here in the United States in January of 2025. And so this book was written in the Azores. It does have the Atlantean energy in it. The interesting thing about the Azores is it's very Zen-like in energy. I mean, it's so Zen. It's the only word I can use to describe it. It's not, it's more than island time. It's just so you have a hardest time getting out of bed. And even the locals will sometimes just call off work, and they're just like they're just so zenned out. Everyone's like, so it has this vortex of energy that has that type feel to it. And when I got over there, I literally had the book written, published, uploaded, everything done in 6 months. So it happened very quickly. And I think it was because I was able to experience 2 things that I've been wanting to experience. And one of them was seclusion, and the other was detachment. So I had to sell everything I owned, my car, my home. I gave away all my furniture and stuff like that. And I moved over there with two suitcases. And that was it. I did some book signings when I was over there. Um, but yeah, it was a really good experience because I was able to really focus on this fourth book. And actually, this fourth book was through popular demand. When I wrote my first three books, I had poems in the back of each book. And as each book was being released, and people were coming to me and saying, "Oh, I love your book." But the poems, oh my gosh, they went crazy for the poems. They just were they were on and on about the poems, and I said, well, what is it about the poems? And they said they're experiential. So what you're writing about and I'm reading about in your book, I'm actually getting to experience in your poems. It's not just words on a page. It's I feel it. It's like food for the soul. And so everyone kept saying, I have to buy your books to get all these different poems. You need to write one book on just spiritual poetry, so you collect all your poems and all the previous poems and write more poems. And so that's when that whole thing came about. I had the conversation with Mother Ayahuasca, and she's like, "Yes, that's how this is happening." And but then she was telling me I had to go overseas to write that book. So it was the book is it had quite an adventure to it. I was known as Miss Ernest Hemingway when I was over there because I was the eccentric American writer over there. The locals liked me, but they would only see me once a week when I would have to go down the mountain to get my groceries. I used a taxi wherever I went. I stayed in a furnished home that I rented, and so it was an amazing experience. The Azores, if you were to put Hawaii and Ireland together and have a baby, it would be the Azores. So it's a very
Mm.
beautiful island. It's I lived on the Big Island of San Miguel, and so part of the reason was the capital of the Azores is there, and Amazon flies in, so I could get my books flown in for my book signing events and that type of thing. But and while I was over there, I was able to see Ireland, which was really nice. That had been on my list of things to do while I was over there. So that was like a nice little side trip I did for 2 weeks. But
Well, it sounds amazing. And when you said Mrs. Ernest Hemingway, because that's kind of how I saw you as like this mad writer living up in the mountains. And they're like, is she still there? Is she dead? Is she alive? What's she doing? Oh, there she is. She came down for some cheese and crackers and some wine and food to take back home. I don't know.
and they
Um,
do have amazing Portuguese wine there. So
I've heard, not because I know about the Azores, but I've heard it's Portuguese wine is amazing. So I'm like thinking to myself by candlelight, she's like, I can't sleep, I gotta write, you know. And then on top of that, what you were saying before is people are like, oh, so spaced out from just living in this time without time. But yeah, there has to be there's an Azor clock, obviously, so people know they have to get up and go to work. But I'm thinking of you like without a clock and then just working around the clock because didn't you say you had your visa for like 2 years? Were you expecting to stay there for 2 years, or do you think everything just kind of came through you within that first 6 months?
yeah, I don't think there was my mind was the visa was for 2 years, so I knew I had 2 years there, but it was automatic renewal. Once the hardest part is getting the visa, but once you're over there, you can renew it for another 3 years. And but I was just open to whatever was meant to happen. I totally surrendered my personal will for the divine will at this point because I had and that's the interesting thing is when you talk to people who've been through these master plant teachers, whether it's peyote, ayahuasca, iboga, there's a number of them, their life changes in many different ways. And it's similar to having a near death experience because you cross over the veil and then you go into these other upper dimensions. And when you come back, you're not the same. You can't possibly be the same. So similar to near death experiencers, they cross the veil, they have all these mystical experiences on the other side of the veil, they come back and they're not afraid of death because they've know what awaits them on the other side. So that's one of the beauties of going under sacred plant medicine, is because a lot of people I've talked to actually who have done ayahuasca have said the similar thing. They're like, I'm not afraid of death now because I've experienced it. I died to this physical reality. I crossed over the veil and I went into these other dimensions, and it was a glorious experience. And and so they are forever changed. They look at life completely differently now. They live their life completely differently now. Their values are completely different. What's important to them is different. And they've definitely expanded their consciousness, because now they've expanded it to a much higher level than just the physical reality. Yeah.
Well, it sounds extremely inviting. I mean, I feel like for me, I've kind of thrown caution to the wind, always thinking outside of the box, and then, getting rid of most of my earthly possessions and sharing a house with someone else. And, basically, if I had to move, it'd just be me and my suitcases. And I've been waiting for, like, okay, Spirit, where am I supposed to take these suitcases? Right. So maybe I need to get a little closer to Mother Ayahuasca or something, because I feel like I'm at a plateau where I'm not budging. My meter isn't budging. And I've not really been drawn to going outside of myself in that way, simply because I don't think I've ever understood it enough to trust it, or to be with someone trusted that I'm in their presence while this is occurring, and what I could expect. But like you said, you did a lot of preparation before you did. I know when I went on a vision quest, we did at least 3 months of preparation before we went. So, um, and even then, the experience was very different than the prep work.
Yeah.
So, and everyone's experience can be very different in whatever it is that they're preparing for in the next level or journey of this experience we call our life. But it sounds like, yeah, this might be a next step for Sandy to step into and experience here. But back to the Azars and no clock. So you wrote this book in 6 months, and then did you hang out for a while, or did you just send it to your publisher and then come back, or
Actually,
did you stay a little longer?
I wrote it actually the first 4 months that I was there, and it took
There she goes
really
bragging.
only
four
2 months
months,
to
four
go
months
through
to write a
the.
book.
Yeah, it really came in really fast. And you are correct. There were nights and days that I lost track of time. I would
Yeah.
get done and I'd look at my clock and it was 1 in the morning, and it was just, so it, as the downloads, the internal spiritual downloads came in, the poems just started flooding in. And I just, sometimes I would get five in one day. Sometimes I'd get two in one day. It just, it was, and then a day would go by and nothing. And then it was time for me to rest where I could do other things. And then I started writing the fifth book while I was over there. I got 5 chapters completed. And but I wanted to see Ireland. I'm half Irish, and my family comes from Cork. And this is so interesting how spirit works. At one of my book signings that was in downtown Ponta Delgada, which is capital city there on San Miguel, there was a person that was visiting that week, and she happened to see this gathering of people, and she came in and sat down, and it was at an outdoor cafe. And she was from Cork, Ireland. And so she came up to my table and purchased some books, and I autographed them, of course. And we got to talking, and she says, um, I from Cork, Ireland, and I was like, oh, that is so what I'm getting ready to do in the next couple of months. And so we exchanged information. We had dinner a couple of times while she was there that week. She was a high school teacher coming in for continuing education credits that week. There was a program there that week in the Azores on ecology, because the island is so natural that there is a lot of ecology programs there. And so I ended up 2 months later getting on a plane and going to, I stayed in downtown Cork, and I got to see her a couple of times while I was there. And so it was very interesting feeling, because uh, when you have that heritage connection. So that was, and that was my 23 countries. That was my 23rd country that I had seen. And so it'd always been on my list to go see. So I was so close. I had to take advantage of that. But most of the time I would say that a lot of times it was just me and spirit. When I wasn't writing, I was just connecting. And it was really nice because everything is so fast paced here, a lot of times in the United States or maybe some of these other countries like Canada and whatnot, where we don't really get an opportunity to unplug from the world and really go inward. So that was really, really nice to be able to have that opportunity. I ended up coming back to the States in January of this year. January 2025. I had a round trip ticket. I wasn't sure if I was going to be going back to the Azores. Um, I had lost my lease because the person that I was renting my house from decided to put their house on the market.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that kind of was like, well, and I had a friend that said you can come and stay with us for several months and then kind of see if you wanted what you wanted to do or what spirit has for you. So I ended up finding a place to rent and in Florida, and I was there for several months. And then, well, I have some medium friends, and one particular medium friend, he's been connected since childhood. He's so gifted. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't need to. He just connects right into your guides right away. And so he had said to me, he goes, "Oh, it appears you're going to be moving to Red Rock Country." And I really got excited then because I knew deep down that meant Sedona, and that had always been a dream for me one day to live in Sedona. So 7 weeks ago, I just moved here to Sedona, and I'm excited to be here and connect and to the energy vortex that surrounds Sedona because of all these big red rocks that we have around here. And there's a lot of crystals in these rocks formations, so that holds a lot of wisdoms and energy and the whole vortex. And and that's a lot of people have had experiences with the vortex when they come to Sedona. And I had been here 5 years prior and had an experience with the vortex. And so yeah, it's a very real phenomenon as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that from many people who have gone there or visited there, and they'll say they was so mystical for them. I personally didn't find it the two times I was there, but then I think it's just because I'm aligned differently. So it didn't really knock my socks off or woo me in one way or the other. I even asked Spirit the last time I was there was, is this one of the areas? And I was hearing you could. And then there's a part of me that's like, well, I'd rather go somewhere that's less saturated. And they're like, yeah, but you'd have a support group here. And I go, yeah, but I'm okay being my own support group and creating new support groups. So I was having this dialogue the whole time I was there. And then I go, well, it's a mute point because I got to get on a plane to go home now. So, okay, maybe it'll be my home. But I'm just so glad that you followed your path and you wound up there.
Yeah, because I've been to so many different places on the planet, this is the one place I always felt at home. I've seen all
Mm.
these different countries and living overseas and in Europe, and but Sedona is a very special place. In fact, one of the things is that people who are cured of cancer here, they're diagnosed with cancer, they move to Sedona, and within 2 to 5 years, the cancer's gone
Mm.
because of this vortex of energy that definitely surrounds. And I'll give you actually a personal experience. When I had, shortly before I was to come to Sedona 5 years ago, I had fractured my foot in two places, and I had one of those boots, those black removable cast type boots. And so I said, well, I had non-refundable plane tickets. So I said, I don't care, I'm going anyway. So I went on the plane with my boot, and I get over, and I had heard so much about the vortex, I packed sneakers. Well, let me tell you, overnight, once I had flown into Phoenix, rented a car, and drove, thank goodness my fracture was on my left foot, so I could drive. And And then I literally, the next morning, I got up and I had no pain, and I'd been in a lot of pain. And I literally hiked for 10 days while I was in Sedona. And it's one of those things, when you have pain, you can't think of anything else. But when you
Yeah.
don't have the pain, you forget about it, right? Quickly. And so then I ended up packing on the way back to fly back to Florida. I ended up packing my cast, and I just didn't think much of it. I'm wearing my sneakers. I'm at the gas station gassing up my car, the car rental to return to the Phoenix airport. There was an issue with the machine. So I went in to talk to the attendant. He comes out to look at the machine, and there's another guy on the other side of the pump, and he's like, "Hey, Miss California," because he sees the plates on my car as Miss California. I go, "I'm not from California." He goes, "Yeah, your plates say California." I said, "It's a rental car. I'm from Florida." And so then the attendant looks at me, goes, "Oh, you're from Florida? I'm from Florida. I just moved here 3 years ago. It's paradise here." And he goes, and he was the one that told me people move here that are diagnosed with cancer. And he says they're cured of cancer. And he says, "Have you ever noticed when you're here in Sedona, there's no doctor's offices. There's no hospital here. It's almost like," and I go, "Yeah, it's very interesting." So you have to go to Cottonwood, which is the nearest hospital. But and then it hit me. It like dawned on me. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been hiking for an entire week with no pain, and I packed my cast on a foot that has two fractures in it. So I realized the vortex is very real phenomenon, because I personally experienced it. And sure enough, I flew back to Florida. The next morning, I woke up and I was in agony, and I had to start taking Advil again and put my boot back on. And so, yeah, it's definitely a real phenomenon. It's all over YouTube. People have had
Hmm.
different experiences and things like that. So yes, it's so a lot of people move here for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes it's ecological, environmental, others it's for spiritual. We have a great hiking club here. And so it's a real interesting experience now living here, because I've never lived in the West. I grew up and have lived my most of my life, well, I basically my whole life on the East Coast. So it's a completely different vibrational frequency. And
Totally.
yeah, yeah, but it's very it's people are very open here to I think going deeper on their spiritual journey. I think that they're willing to take a look at the spiritual wisdoms that is within all the different belief systems, and maybe not just subscribe to one particular belief system. I mean, if people want to do that, that's fine, but they want to go even deeper to the universal spiritual truths that reside in all of the belief systems, and not limit themselves to that particular, to just being open to what their journey needs to show them. So, soul's divine journey.
Well, that's a lot to pack in there. And I'm just glad that you found the place that you were drawn to. I think I've told you I've lived in the DC area all my life, right? And
Yeah.
I know that I'm supposed to have been here all the way up until now because it's just anchoring the energy, and it also because it is so chaotic that when I go somewhere else, it's really easy for me to calibrate the energies. Um, but Spirit has told me recently that it's okay if I decide to relocate. And of course, I will leave it up to my guide team to let me know where that is, because it'll be a feeling. It won't be a look, it'll be a feeling of wherever I wind up going.
Yeah.
And so, I just told my aunt yesterday in Pennsylvania, I just said, I don't think I'm supposed to be on the East Coast. It will not be on the East Coast. I think it's going to be more Southwest for me. I just don't know where yet because I haven't experienced it. But when I do, I will feel it and I will know it just as you did. And that's the other beautiful thing, Dr. Nancy, and you've been saying this over and over again, and you're sharing here today and bringing the awareness to, if we just sort of surrender and
Mm-hmm.
let spirit and allow spirit to guide us without the ego having a condition on it or resistance to it because it's an unknown,
Mhm.
we will find some amazing adventures.
Oh
And I
yeah.
know I live that every single day myself. And I've been waiting for a lot of people to catch the hell up. And so now I'm like, I'm meeting all these wonderful people. And it's funny because a lot of the people that are on the podcast right now are from the Sedona area. And I've had the most fun and the easiest bounce with every single one that I have to say, I don't know what it is about Sedona and all the people coming on the show, but we are just, we're, our threads are connected, our veins are connected. And I may come back to visit quite a bit, but I don't know that I would put down roots, but I don't know that yet. So
Mhm.
I don't have a resistance to no, it's definitely not there. Although I did verbally say that to the spirit guides. I don't think so. Um, but then, that can come back to bite you, a year or two
Well,
later.
sometimes
But
spirit
you said you
overrules
were,
the ego,
yeah, yeah.
It's yes, we
You
do
said
have
you
free
would never
will.
gonna, yeah. Yeah, you just told us a year ago you'd never be here. Look at you. Ah, ha, ha, ha. So I'm being very careful of what I'm saying. So I never say never. I listen to spirit as well. And you're sharing all of your experiences. I mean, when people think about selling everything, selling a home, selling property, going down into two suitcases, that means family stuff, all kinds of things were either put in storage, given away, whatever it is. It
Mhm.
sounds like a fantasy or something you see on a movie, but I know from experience how labor intensive that is, even if you're driven by message to do it. It
Mhm.
takes time. And during that time, there can be some egoic battles going on, like
Oh
WTF,
yes.
what the hell am I doing? And
Oh
then if I
yeah.
go all the way over there, and then, what if I'm eaten by lions and tigers and bears? Oh my, I'm just saying. So I
Well,
really just have to commend you.
yes. Yeah. I mean, I was even having conversations with my immigration attorney, which is in Lisbon, and she's saying, the Azores. Now, you got to understand, Lisbon's the Washington, D.C. of Portugal, and they see the Azores as Mississippi. I mean, it's out
Oh,
there in the middle of nowhere. A majority of the island, once you get outside of the capital city, which cruise ships pull in, it's beautiful. It's all rural. They just, it's just rural. And so to them, it's backwards. And she's like, "Have you ever been to the Azores?" And I go, "No." "Do you know anybody in the Azores?" I go, "No." And she's like, "What's in the Azores?" Well, I couldn't exactly tell her. A spirit is telling me you got to move the Azores to write this fourth book. And I said, "Well, I'm just feeling drawn to the Azores to have that experience of, living there." And but yeah, even my immigration attorney was questioning me. She's like, what's with the Azores?" But
yeah. I'm surprised she wasn't saying. And so, have you never been there? You don't know anybody. But so, when's the last time that you had a mental and physical exam by your physician? Like, are you out of your mind?
yeah. Well, I certainly wasn't going to tell her that I have this voice in my head and it's called
Exactly.
Mother Ayahuasca. So yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, spirit is I'd say has a sense of humor because it's I've I won't say that I argue with my spirit guides, but I have a lot of deep discussions with them and say, because originally when they said, "Oh, we want you to move to the Azores," I'm like, "No, I'm not going to the Azores." I was, but of course that's my ego saying, I don't think so. And but of course, spirit wins out when you've surrendered your life into service to the divine will.
Mm.
You know the answer is going to be yes. Deep down, you just kind of have to work with your ego to calm it down and say, "Don't worry, it'll be okay. This is just look at it as an adventure." And but yes, that was a real test for me. And in fact, my spirit guides and Mother Ayahuasca tested me for 3 years before they gave me that assignment. And it's interesting because there's this metaphysical bookstore in North Orlando that sells my books, And they were all excited when I was telling them I was moving to Sedona. They said, "Oh, you got a good assignment now. You got a cush assignment now. You paid your dues having to go to the Azores for a year to write that book." So, because I mean, it wasn't easy because I don't speak Portuguese. I don't know the language. So there was a language barrier. Only about 50% of that island speaks English. And so I'm living in a country, I don't know the language. It's in euros. It's I have to exchange all my money all the time, and do an exchange. Everything's done over online, and it was very. You have this feeling of you're a foreigner in a foreign land, and you always feel like a foreigner because you are. I mean, the natives were very nice to me. They were very friendly. They thought that it was kind of interesting having this mystic writer on their island, and it's a Catholic island. Every village has a Catholic church, and so I mean that didn't bother me. I grew up Catholic and all, but yes, it was. I was there on assignment. I had a job to do, and I felt the heaviness of I really have to get this book done, and that was my priority. That was the reason I was there, and it was always that weight was always on me to get that book done. And so yeah, it was. So now that I was told that I was going to be moving to Sedona, I said, okay, there's my reward. I paid my dues, but sorry, it was too painful. But I went there by myself. I mean, I had to face my fears. I had to completely, all my documents, I had to scan and shred them. And because, like you said, I mean, my whole life had to be compressed down to two suitcases. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely an experience of trusting spirit 100%. And actually it was quite a witness because when I did book signings, the number one expat in the Azores, or specifically on San Miguel, is Americans. Yes, because it's so peaceful there, because of the Zen-like energy. People go on vacation, they just fall in love with the place, and and then they immigrate there and retire there. It's very inexpensive in the Azores too. So a lot of Americans. The second expat is British, and the third's Germans.
Wow.
So yeah, so me, when I was doing book signings, especially the Americans were just that were visiting were totally blown away. They're like, I can't imagine selling everything I own and moving over there with two suitcases by yourself, because
Yes.
I had a lot of men saying I wouldn't have immigrated over here unless I was married. I would not do it by myself. And so they said it takes a lot of courage. And yes, but it also is about faith and trust in the divine spirit, the divine essence that's within us. And it was definitely an experience of total surrender. I mean, I really had to surrender my personal will for the divine will. And it
Hmm.
has been that way for a long time, especially when I went through a full awakening through the ayahuasca ceremonies. That I was pretty awake going in, but when I got done with going through 6 ceremonies, I was definitely completely awakened. And I had a lot of mystical experiences on the other side of the veil. A lot was said to me, a lot was shown to me. Um, and we can have maybe another session on that. But people have different experiences because each soul is unique. What they need to experience is unique. What they're going through is unique. And so it's ayahuasca and these master plant teachers are not for everybody. I will say that. I'm not going to sit here and propose that everyone should do them. It's if you feel the calling. And because I had a friend, she asked me, should I do ayahuasca? And I said, well, have you heard the call from Mother Ayahuasca? And she said, no. I said, well, maybe it's not Mother Ayahuasca that will call you. Maybe it's a different plant teacher, or maybe not now at this time. So it's something that they are classified as Schedule 1. They are classified as illegal. I go into why that is in my book. And all through the centuries, all these different societies, we have to understand that we look at them as illegal substances because we live in the 21st century where they are classified right now as illegal. But centuries ago, they were widely accepted and widely used. And so it's, I do go through that. The Master Plant Teacher's book is well researched. It is my dissertation put into book form. So it's very extensive, and it is my number one bestseller on Amazon and Apple Books. That's out of the four books that I have published. Is so there is people looking to, many of them go to Cancun or the Brazil or Peru to do the different ayahuasca ones. If you want to do iboga, you have to go to Africa, and some other places. And but it's definitely an experience that a lot of people, it will change, it will definitely change your life. And if it's done right, and you bring up a lot of good points, I do bring them up in my book. You have to have people there, you have to have a well-trained shaman. There is a criteria. The space has to be protected because you are opening yourself up. A lot of people say, "Oh, I had this bad experience when I took this or that particular plant medicine," but where were they, and what was the process that they went through, and who was their uh, shaman? And a properly trained shaman, it's not, it is their life's work. They start at a very young age. They sing ikaras, which are songs, which has a vibrational frequency tone into the medicine as they're chopping it, as they're cooking it, as they're serving it. There is a sacred space. It is protected space. They are with you the whole time. They can go into these realms with you to make sure that you don't get, because you are opening yourself up, that you're protected spiritually. You do have to be medically checked because there is a lot of medicine prescriptions you cannot be on when you, like, there I go into my book a lot more deeply. But I had to be screened by a doctor. There was medics there. There was a doctor, there was a two EMTs, there was a nurse, there was a psychologist, the shaman. I mean, there was a whole team there. There was 20 volunteers. It was a very organized, and I went to a place that was above ground. I did not go anything that was below ground. I'm sure they exist. But so I tell people, do your research, and do your research well, and make sure that it is a safe place to do a sacred ceremony with a plant medicine. And so that's, but again, they have to prepare themselves. Your temple is very important, like what you eat prior to. And I think your consciousness level is very important. That's going to play a factor. Meaning, go through your life. I mean, what type of music are you listening to? What type of lifestyle do you have? What do you focus on most of the day, that you're the internal dialogue that's playing through your mind on a daily basis? And so it's definitely going to be like, one of the criteria is you cannot have marijuana in your system for 30 days. And there are a lot of psychotropic, antidepressant meds that you cannot be on, because you will have a bad trip, because she's saying, I'm asking you not to do this. And if you do it anyways, and you go into ceremony and you've lied, and to not only to the shaman, but the people that are on staff, then that's where things start to not go well. And that's just because she's rewiring neurons in your brain. She's she's speeding up processes and doing all kinds of healing in the brain. New neural pathways are created. And that's one of the beauties that they're finding. Like, we have 23 university medical school teaching hospitals that are doing research, and have been for 30 years, on these plant medicines. And that's why nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals have gotten into this, because they see the benefits of how it heals people from drug addictions to end of life crises, PTSD. There's a number of different agencies that are interested in it because of how she rewires these pathways that go around these different memories that are ruts in the brain. So for somebody who, let's say, has PTSD, they will come to the medicine. People come to the medicine for a variety of different reasons. That's one of the questions that I ask when I run into somebody who's done a plant medicine. What brought you to the medicine? And they'll share their story about what brought them to the medicine. And it varies from many, many different reasons. And but they all walk away. If it's done correctly, they walk away with a very positive and life-changing experience. Yeah.
Well, it sounds really powerful. And I think we're going to end it there today because that was a lot of information for people to listen to. And I just appreciate your candor and your experience and the way that you share these experiences to broaden people's awareness to a little bit more about this information that maybe they had misinformation before, or maybe they weren't interested in it, but now maybe they are. But I do appreciate all of that. And I want to get on our next segment and talk about the poems. And then
Yeah.
we've got a couple other segments coming up. We're going to have a variety of things that we're going to talk about with Dr. Nancy. So don't freak out. She's not going anywhere. She's coming back. So you got to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the episodes for sure. So anyway, again, I'd like to remind each and every one of you to hit the like, subscribe, share, and leave us a question. If you've got a question for Dr. Nancy, put it in the comments, especially if my YouTube, Sandra McEllis. I usually look at them a little bit more there, and then I can bring it up on the next segment of Keep It Spiritually Simple. So anyway, anything else you'd like to add before we go? What's your website? It'll be in the description, but please tell our guests where they can find you.
My website is nancyclarkphd.com. And I just created the my YouTube channel. It's called Inner Majesty. So you can go there. We are in the process of taking all my poems and putting them to music and background scenery with the text scrolling of the poems as I'm reading them to the people watching it. So that's our project right now we're working on. And then I'm now just starting the recordings of all the different the video series I'm going to do on master plan teachers. So I think that's going to be very popular, and I'm looking forward to the engagement and how it touches people and affects them and that sort of thing. So,
Well,
but
thank you for all the hard work that you've done to bring, now everyone's going to reap the benefits of all the years that you've dedicated through education, through experiences, through travel, through writing. So I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm so grateful to know you and call you my friend.
oh,
And
thank you for having
oh,
me on your show.
yes, of course. I look forward to episode 2. So, okay, everybody, we're going to say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.